You're live.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Again, this is the Senate Transportation Committee, and we're taking up CarShare Vermont. We've heard a lot about it. Be good to find out something about it. Amy Borden is with us, Executive Director. Good morning and welcome to our committee. Tell us a little something about CarShare.
Good morning. I'd be happy to. Again, I'm Annie Borden, Executive Director of CarShare Vermont. Thank you for the opportunity to update you on our work. I've put together a brief presentation that I thought I'd step you to. It's also available in advance, but
all right, thank
I'm going to share my screen.
All right.
Here we go.
Right.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about car sharing as a mode for those of you who may not be familiar with this service. So car sharing is a service that makes vehicles available on a short-term basis as an alternative to private vehicle ownership. So as a mode, it is distinct from car rentals, carpooling, ride-hailing services like Uber and Lyft, taxis, although it often gets confused with some of these modes. So the key distinctions are that we offer a decentralized network. So unlike a car rental where the vehicles are kind of co-located on site at an airport or at a rental agency, our vehicles are dispersed throughout Burlington, in our case, near where our members live and work. It's a self-serve accessible program, so there is no meeting a live person at the vehicle. A member can book a car 24 hours a day and self-access it using their own electronic device or an app on a phone. And it is short-term use. We make vehicles available by the hour and by the day for those who need a longer term reservation or a fraction of the hour. So if somebody simply needs a vehicle for 30 minutes to get to an appointment or pick up a friend from the airport, they can use a vehicle for that purpose. And our rates are all inclusive. So similar kind of paying a utility bill, it can help folks budget their transportation expenses because our rates are inclusive of comprehensive insurance, fuel or electricity if it's an EV, maintenance, repairs, winter tires. We even remove snow on days like today. Today, there are several models of car sharing, including station-based, which is what CarShare Vermont is. Station-based means it's a round trip service, so you pick up and return the vehicle to the same parking location. Some cities offer one-way car sharing where you can pick up from one location and drop a vehicle at another. And there's also peer-to-peer car sharing where private vehicle owners can make their vehicles available to rent to neighbors or complete strangers for a fee. Currently, multinational rental and auto manufacturers dominate the U.S. car sharing market. That was not always the case. Not too many years ago, there were quite a few independent operators, but it is a really effective service, and car rental companies and auto manufacturers have gotten into it and have absorbed many of the independent providers. Independent nonprofit operators are filling the gaps in rural areas, suburban areas, communities that may otherwise be left behind by this mode. And that's where CarShare Vermont fits in. So a little bit more about our organization. We're founded in 2000, nonprofit with a mission to provide an affordable, convenient, and reliable alternative to vehicle ownership that enhances the environmental, economic, and social well-being of our region and planet. We are very focused on the delivery of our social change mission. It is also a practical reality that car sharing is not profitable in small cities and rural areas where there isn't sufficient population density to support a very large fleet and a more robust program. Nevertheless, that does not mean that there's not demand and need for a service to provide increased mobility for those who don't own cars and the option for those who are hoping to reduce their vehicle dependence or trying to save money to shed vehicles. So as I mentioned, our service is station-based. We have vehicles all over Burlington, and we serve about 1,000 folks. We serve local residents, employees of area businesses, and students from the area colleges. We have currently 21 vehicles, and nearly half of them are electric, a combination of 4 100% electric EVs and 6 plug-in hybrid EVs. And aside from the 24-hour operation of our transportation service, we also design and implement a range of programs geared at advancing our mission and shaping policies that will make our transportation system more equitable and sustainable. And we are made up of a team of 4.25 full-time equivalents and a great group of volunteers. Our volunteers include our board members, but also folks that help shovel snow on a day like today, move a car during a parking ban, keep kind of the eyes and ears on our fleet for us. We have, our budget is about $700,000, 3/4 of which is covered by our earned revenue, so the fees we derive from our service. And I wanted to share that point just to indicate kind of our capacity and why we've kind of limited our service area to Burlington so far, as we just haven't had the capital to build out a bit. So how does it work? As I mentioned, vehicles are decentralized. They're parked all over Burlington. We've also in the past had vehicles in Winooski and one in South Burlington, and a couple in Montpelier for a pilot project a few years ago. We procure parking by working with the city of Burlington, with private housing developers and property managers. University of Vermont Champlain College also provide parking locations. A member can reserve a car any time of day by the hour a day, and they can do that using our website, a mobile app. If they don't have access to either of those options, they're welcome to call us and we'll make a reservation for them. And then the vehicles are self-accessible with an electronic key or using a mobile app to unlock the vehicle. And once inside the vehicle, the keys are kept inside and they drive and go and do their errands just as they would, and then return the vehicle to its location. And as I mentioned, everything is included in our rates. We charge by the hour and by the mile, so that somebody who's just driving, a short distance to get to a medical appointment is paying less than the person who during that same hour might be driving to a meeting in Montpelier and returning. So we try to make it equitable so that the less you drive, the less you pay. And our members spend on average less than $100 per month to share our vehicles. And if you compare that to the kind of average cost of owning a vehicle, it's substantially less. I think the AAA figure is about, upwards of nearly $700 a month or something. I think it was $687 the last time I checked per month to own a vehicle. So our impact, last year, 76% of our members reported shedding or opting not to purchase a vehicle after joining CarShare Vermont. And that is a really important statistic. The majority of our members belong to 0 and 1 car households. So as people gain access to car sharing and are given the choice to own fewer cars, that results in a decrease in vehicle ownership and a reduction in driving. For every vehicle we put in service, an average of 15 are removed from the road. And last year, our members reduced their vehicle miles traveled on average by 1,000 miles per household. That takes into account the portion of our members that actually substantially increased their VMT by gaining access to vehicles that they otherwise could not afford to drive. And our reductions in VMT result in there's a direct correlation to reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and pollution. Last year, 382 fewer tons of greenhouse gas emissions. And we offer free memberships and discounted driving rates to any individual or household who identifies as low income. And we have a mobility share program that we either self-fund or we procure different grants to help us subsidize the membership plans. But since 2019, participation in our mobility share rate plan has tripled, indicating a real demand for safe and reliable transportation among households with lower incomes. And no doubt this coincides with the COVID pandemic and people looking for, at a time when maybe public transportation didn't feel as safe, looking for other ways to have their mobility needs met, and also probably gaining awareness about our program for the first time, which we've been making a concerted effort to help people know about us. So I think I kind of touched on in talking about our impacts, they kind of coincide with the general research on car sharing about the positive benefits it offers communities, but it's a highly effective strategy at reducing vehicle dependence. And this is because vehicle ownership is the #1 predictor of driving. If somebody owns a vehicle, they're most likely to choose it as their mode than walking, biking, public transit, other options that may be available. Even if regardless of the proximity of, there could be a bus stop across the street. If there's a vehicle in the driveway, be the default mode. And so by simply offering the choice to have access to car sharing and the choice to own fewer vehicles, people have to make the financial kind of calculation of what mode they want to take, and they inevitably drive less. And they're relying on other modes more. Less driving means fewer negative environmental impacts related to driving, which we're all familiar with. And equally important, our service provides increased mobility for those who cannot afford to own a vehicle, but need access from time to time. And particularly in our rural areas, we know that some of the time you're going to need access to a vehicle, but a vehicle is still very expensive to access. So transportation is the second highest household expense, and we're trying to reduce the cost of housing and living in our community by making transportation more affordable. It reduces demand for parking at the rate that we're able to, remove vehicles from our streets and roads. That can free up land for a higher purpose than housing and supporting car infrastructure. And it also supports an increase in transit ridership, walking, biking, and other modes. And we survey our members every year, and these are results that we find from our membership. They're also consistent with national and international research on car sharing. And because members are able to drive less, it provides a significant cost savings over personal vehicle use. And for those who do not own vehicles, it is a much more affordable option than trying to acquire a vehicle. So one aspect of our service that we've been working hard on over the past couple of years is expanding EV access through car sharing. So we recognize that for many, vehicle ownership is simply out of reach. And so while the EV incentives and rebates are, effective at enabling somebody who can afford to buy a vehicle to consider an EV, it may not help those who are without cars by necessity or by choice to be able to access this clean technology. And so last year, with support, we received a mobility and transportation innovation grant from VTrans in 2020, and we paired that with some funding from VLIGHT, the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, and a private foundation. And we were able to purchase and locate 4 EVs at affordable housing sites in Burlington and South Burlington. And we installed the EV infrastructure to make those vehicles electric. And we then launched an extensive outreach campaign offering free memberships to all of the residents of those properties, but also any resident in the area that meets our financial eligibility requirements. We translated our multiple language for the host of local partner organizations to try to get the word out about car sharing and also increase access to EVs. We also know that car sharing can be, for some, while we hope it helps people avoid vehicle ownership, for some folks, it's a gateway to acquiring a vehicle on their own if they need one, because car sharing is a wonderful solution for many, many needs. But if you need a car every single day to commute, for example, it's not going to be the most viable option. And so research shows that making EVs available in shared fleets can actually encourage EV adoption. So we're exposing kind of more of our community members to electric vehicles. We're excited that we're partnering with Burlington Electric and VLIGHT, again, along with Champlain Housing Trust, to add 2 more EVs this spring, as soon as we can get a hold of them. And they will go at the multi-generational Old North End Community Center, and another will be in downtown Burlington. And while half of our fleet is transitioned, it has not been an easy process, and some of the challenges as an independent nonprofit trying to corral the partners and create the infrastructure is just the willingness of parking owners, whether it's a housing developer or in any private property, to allow us to not only access parking, but install EV infrastructure. It is a bit tricky, and that's something that we're working through, and it's not impossible. It's just taking a little bit longer than we anticipated. So how can more Vermonters benefit from car sharing? I think we field this question a lot. We field it from VTrans, from transportation partners, and from community members across the state who ask us, can we have a couple of cars in our town? When are you going to expand here? And I think that it is possible, and the likely players that can help facilitate it will be housing developers, particularly affordable housing developers looking to help lower the housing costs for the residents they're providing housing to, transit providers, social service organizations, municipalities, large employers, energy committees can all play a role in helping to support the expansion of car sharing. Also, grant programs like the MTI program I mentioned by VTrans is critical. We encourage the state to increase the funding to that grant program and also raise the grant award. I think in last year, the maximum grant award was about $50,000, which is great, but for the implementation of a transportation service, particularly a shared mobility service, like car sharing, we'd be hard pressed to procure a single vehicle with a charger if it was electric for that grant award. So thinking about kind of a relatively modest investment could expand car sharing to other communities, very similar to investment in public transportation. And that investment would need to be sustained, because while an area like Burlington, we can cover about 75% of our operating costs because we have enough users within a square mile that can access the same vehicle on a daily basis. When we get to more rural communities, residents still need access to these modes, but they may not be able to use them sufficiently to cover 100% of their costs. They may need some recurring subsidy to make the service available. We, in the meantime, while we don't have the resources or the capital to kind of expand statewide currently, we still, for the past 14 years that we've been around, we serve as a resource and an advisor to communities within Vermont and outside of Vermont. CarShare Vermont is unique. Burlington is the smallest city in the country to have a car sharing program, and we try very hard to share what we've learned and share our expertise and guidance in hopes that some other communities will be able to benefit from car sharing. And that is all for the presentation. And I welcome your questions.
Where do you locate the car? How would you get a car? If you live you have to go to the car comes to you.
Correct. You go to the car, so it is self-serve, and so that's one of the limiting factors to why people in Colchester, you probably aren't going to walk to downtown Burlington to access a car, but folks from around Burlington will take the bus. They'll get a ride from another family member. They may be a one vehicle household, and they'll get a ride to the car. But you do need to pick up the vehicle. There's no delivery.
Well, how do you screen the applicant who comes? I mean, they have a good driving record, because your insurance rates must be through the roof. So how do you know the person's not DUI or something when they come get the car?
Sure. So we are a membership organization, and membership is open to anybody who's at least 18 and has 2 consecutive years of driving history. And then we do a motor vehicle record check. It's an automated process through our website. Oh. You can join, provide your information. We screen for that. And then folks are joining a minimum for a month. Our membership fees are modest. Our cheapest plan is $5 a month. And then they gain access to any vehicle. So wherever you live, and we do not geographically restrict membership. It's just the concentration of our members are from Burlington, because that's where our service is. And
if they rent it for 2 hours and they're gone 2.5 hours, how do you know that? Is there a way of charging extra? Because if they bring the car back, it's back there exactly 2 hours. We
do. Telematics in the car, our technology system will alert both the driver and us that somebody is late. And we use, we don't like to use this, but we'll use late fees if somebody's late to encourage them to be on time. And if the vehicle is available, the person can simply extend their reservation. So if they're in the waiting room at the doctor's, it's taking longer, they can add 30 minutes, pay an extra few dollars to have the car longer.
And who charges this? If it's an electric vehicle, they put the charge on, or you pay the gas, or how do you?
We provide like an EVgo charge card. Sometimes multiple charge cards in the car's glove box. So when they need to charge, we pay for the charging. And when it's at its home pod, we've installed the charger, and we also pay the bill on that. So we pay for that. And if it's a gas car, we put a gas card in the vehicle, and they fuel up with that, and we pay the bill.
There's no abuse in that, because somebody could take that card and fill up their tank in a regular car. I'm just wondering about the abuse.
There's no abuse. We have a system of being able to track we track the odometer on the vehicle and the number of gallons that are purchased, and we've found no abuse. I think our members are genuinely so appreciative of the service, and I think being a local community-based nonprofit, helps that.
I know it's
So we've not had
interesting
any
because
fraud.
there's so much,
Yeah.
there's so room for error. I mean, not error, but there's room for a little thievery there if they could, unless they're honest about it. And what's a rate for a couple hours? A rate for an hour? How much is it?
Sure. So we charge $6.50 per hour, or fraction thereof, and it's 38 cents per mile. We charge more for some of our, it's not necessarily a premium vehicle, but for example, we have a all-wheel drive truck and we charge 43 cents per mile for that. And some of our other all-wheel drive vehicles, we charge 43 cents, but the hourly rate is the same. And we have different rates that coincide with different rate plans as well. And for our folks who are income eligible, we include a certain number of mileage with their hourly trips, and also with their day trips to try and lower the cost of their usage.
Huh, you got 19 vehicles. That's a lot of vehicles.
21 vehicles. Yeah,
21,
it
yeah,
is.
you have 21. So your capital buying of the car, that's a lot of upfront money. Then, so does it break even at the end of the year? Can you?
It does not break even. It is a lot of money. There have been periods of time where we've had to creatively lease vehicles. Now we've been able to, in the past few years, we've been able to, because we own the asset of the vehicle, we're able to sell cars, recuperate the sale, and put that towards the purchase of new vehicles. We turn our vehicles over about every 5 years usually. At the end of the year, this year we're projected to be about 80% self-sufficient if we keep pace with usage. During the pandemic in 2020, we were maybe 55% self-sufficient. So because we took a real hit with members just not driving vehicles at all, we actually had to take about 40% of our fleet offline for a period of time.
And what about insurance? Is there a lot of accidents in the course of a year because so many people are driving? I'm just curious. It's fascinating to see how many accidents there would be.
Knock on wood, we have a really wonderful, we have great insurance compared to our peers in other states that really struggle, in procuring insurance for new startup car sharing operators has been challenging. I think because of the loss runs and kind of larger operations. We're insured by the Alliance of Nonprofit Insurance, which we're lucky can provide insurance in Vermont. We provide $1 million in coverage. So unlike car rentals, which may provide only at state, mandatory minimum levels, we provide great coverage. And we have a program that allows our members to reduce their liability. If they cause damage, they're responsible for up to $1,000. But if they pay for a damage waiver, they pay it's, I think, $65 for the year, and their liability is reduced to zero. And we do have a handful of accidents. We had 2 last weekend, during the icy weather, just fender benders. But we are very fortunate that we've had no major losses, no injuries. But you're right, that is a big risk, and it is a cost to carry that insurance.
Okay, questions. It's interesting. I heard about CarShare, but I wonder how it worked. Questions from the committee?
Yes, Senator Miller.
Yes, go right ahead, Senator Pertuk.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and you guys don't pay the car rental tax, I assume, because it's not really a rental. It's not classified as a rental, right? That's
correct. When we first launched our operations back in 2008, we did pay that tax, and then we passed it on to our members. But we, in probably 2010 or 2011, we appealed that because we are not a car rental service, and because we are exempt from paying the tax when we purchase the vehicles. We're able to make the case to not pay the sales tax, and that lowers the cost of our service for our users.
Right. And I was just
purchase and use. You're saying you don't pay purchase and use?
Not on vehicles, no.
As a nonprofit.
Yeah, because we're a 501c3 nonprofit.
Yeah. And you buy new cars?
We buy used wherever we can. When we can get hold of a used vehicle, it's a more difficult market, but we have bought several, gently used in the 2 to 3 year old vehicles, particularly our pickup trucks. We tend to try to buy used because they get so much wear and tear and depreciate quickly. Right. Yeah, but otherwise new.
On Senator Maz's point about getting to the car, there was a time where CarShare did have some cars in Montpelier. But I think one of the problems was people couldn't get to the car. Like if you don't have a car, if you have a car, then you don't really need the car share car unless it's just the type of car. But then if you don't have a car and need the car share car, you need a car to get to the car. So I think that I don't know if it's only because of in areas like Burlington where there's people within walking distance or other public transportation or taxis. Have you found any other way to deal with that issue?
I think that is kind of the challenge for this mode, because it does depend on to make it kind of affordable and feasible. It depends on users being able to self-access the vehicle. And in Montpelier, we had 2 vehicles downtown, and they were fairly well used. Not by a we ended up having just over 100 members when we were in Montpelier for that 2-year period. A small percentage of them were active members, but the vehicles at times were quite well used. But it's true, you do need to be able to walk, bike, get a ride, take the bus to the vehicle to be able to use it. And so I think that left those community members that were a little bit further out. If you're more than a mile from the vehicle, you're less inclined to access it.
Right. I wondered with Montpelier's My Ride that you can get a ride from the bus direct door to door if it's time to try it again. I think I had another question. Oh, the other car, I don't know if you called them car sharing. It seemed like you were talking about the Toro type, the Airbnb of the car rental world.
Yes.
Is that considered? I don't know. It's really not a question for CarShare, but I wondered if they paid the car rental tax, or are they saying they're not renting cars because they're just you're just charging somebody to borrow your own personal vehicle?
I don't know if they pay the rental tax or not. That is a variation of car sharing, the peer-to-peer. But it is more complicated because the vehicle is owned privately, and they are,
right,
making money charging a user for that. That model, I think, has worked in some cities, and I think it could be a model that helps rural areas, make use of sharing among neighbors. It gets trickier with the insurance risk with that, which is a reason that we've not been able to pursue that. Our insurance underwriter won't cover that type of usage for us.
Yeah, it's interesting thing for the committee maybe to see if those peer-to-peer are paying that rental tax. Again, my last question is, if somebody wanted to donate a Corvette to CarShare, would you guys accept it?
I knew that was coming.
We'd have to check it out, but we try to have the most.
You must have people on call 24 hours a day then, right? Because you got calls at night, or if there's a problem.
We do. Yes, I'm on call right now. I think that is, it's being forwarded to that. Yeah, I think that's the challenge as a community-based nonprofit. We have a very, very small staff and a very small team. Right. We try to hire folks to assist with on call because it is a really important but draining part of the job. But we do respond.
Wrong, or they got a flat tire, or they got they run out of gas, or there's a million things that go wrong if it's wow.
I think that I think that's one of the barriers to expansion, is that we really would need to grow our team to be able to, if somebody is in the Northeast Kingdom and a vehicle is left unplugged, it would be, we need folks closer to that area to be able to plug it back in and kind of build out the systems and infrastructure. But I think once the infrastructure is there on a per vehicle basis, it's a relatively low cost service. It's less expensive than subsidizing a bus, for instance. So I do think there's possibilities to expand. It's just kind of getting creative about some of these logistical hurdles. And we think about while we try to have I don't know what what the efficiency of your Corvette is, but we try to have really fuel efficient vehicles. But then we're also thinking, could we have a camper van in our service that people can share? Does everyone have to clamor to have their own? That's kind of a fun idea we have, not something we're legitimately pursuing, but we do want to offer different types of vehicles, tell people meet their different unique needs, which is why while we're pushing towards vehicle electrification, we also still have 2 Toyota Tacoma trucks in our fleet, which become wildly popular spring through fall with everybody doing their yard work, and it helps a good number of our members avoid buying a truck for the few times a year that they need one.
Because they bring them back, they could be dirty, and then you got to get them cleaned. They're right. They throw junk on the inside, or so.
They're pretty responsible. We leave brooms, they'll sweep it out, and then we give all of our vehicles a deep clean every couple of weeks.
No, it's just a lot of workings together to make it all happen, because you got so many strangers are using the cars all the time, or a lot of them. So you never know what they're going to bring them back, what condition they're going to be. But renting a car is very expensive these days. Wow, the rentals have gone right through the roof. I mean, just crazy. My sister-in-law was up here a few months ago, and she rented a car for a week. It was $900. I mean, just crazy.
Wow.
That they were charging at the airports. Questions? Anybody? Jane, do you have one? Yeah.
Well, I did. Do you find that there's the demand gets concentrated at certain days, certain times, and do you ever not have enough vehicles to meet the demand of members at a given time?
Sure. Good question. I'd say that, weekends tend to be busier, but all days of the week, we tend to have some steady usage. There's certainly a dip, Monday and Tuesday. But we try to locate vehicles. We try to locate them within a quarter mile of each other where we have high density popular locations. So if your first choice or your preferred vehicle isn't available, usually a short walk or bike ride away, if you're able, there's another car close by. And so because of that availability, and the way our reservation system works is you're able to see our entire fleet. So if you know that you're flexible on your time and you just need a 2-hour window to get to the grocery store, you can see where you can plug yourself in. And so kind of naturally the schedule fills up that way. So we receive, I think October, our fleet-wide average, busy time of year. We were fielding lots of inquiries from tourists, and our vehicles were used over 10 hours a day, which is quite a lot for a car sharing service. But otherwise, it kind of evens out throughout the year. We are looking to expand. We'll probably get up to 24, 25 vehicles this year, but it's slow growing because it's acquiring the parking and also the vehicles themselves.
You mentioned tourists. Is there reciprocity then with other car sharing organizations?
There is philosophically, there is a host of independent providers that we love to encourage reciprocity. However, in major cities, those are operated by Zipcar, which is owned by Avis, Enterprise, and we don't have reciprocity with those organizations. With the small independent nonprofits, we do. So, if you're in the San Joaquin Valley or Albany, New York, there's one emerging there, but it is not, national coverage. We're also on different. We're all using our own technology and operating systems. So there's a barrier that, our app would not get you into a car in New York City.
Where do you park them? You have to have a spot where they're secure and they can't be towed away at night, or so you have to have a spot for parking them?
Yes, we are in a variety of public parking spaces on street provided by the city of Burlington. Oh. We partner with a variety of different local housing partners, UVM and Champlain College. We have parking on site on their campuses as well.
So they provide parking there. Okay. So then you have to move them when it's snowing, or no, somebody does that? Or?
We in some instances, during a parking ban from the public spaces, we have to move them, and we find we have volunteers that allow us to either park them in the driveway, or a business lets us use a lot overnight.
Sounds like you're the right person for the job. You got it all together. That's a lot. Wow, I mean, it's just interesting. I heard about CarShare, but I didn't know how it worked. But there's a lot of moving parts to make it happen. Wow,
a lot of moving parts and a lot of really awesome members. I think it's for the number of kind of hassles and problems that could arise. It works very smoothly most of the time, and wow. Our members report being very satisfied with the service. I think we were just looking for how we can, expand the benefits to more people.
What's the membership versus new people coming that you never heard from before? you have to be a member? Is that, or no? Yeah.
You have to be a member, but you can join, you know,
Instantly.
the same day. Yeah.
So you got about the membership pretty much know the rules and regulations. They've
Yes.
done it before. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some of our members are, you know, have been members for as long as we've existed, where they're, for about half our members, where their second car, and another, you know, 40% were their primary vehicle.
Wow. Very, very interesting. Any other questions from the committee? Yes, Senator Ingalls.
Hi, Annie. Thank you for
Hi.
what you do. It takes
Yeah.
people like you to make this world go around. Thank you.
Right.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're very on top of it. I'll tell you, it's a very, you explained it so well, because I've been asked about it before, but I never knew how it worked as CarShare. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of parts to put together. It's just between the fuel and the trust of this people, and, you know, bringing them back, and insurance, and just a lot of moving parts. Wow.
Yeah. It's we've been, you know, so we've been here since 2008, but car sharing has been in the US since the mid to late 90s. So there is some experience, but there's a reason it hasn't exploded in more rural communities, because it is tricky to make the conditions right. And I think it's no less valuable and important. It's just it's a tricky, you know, a tricky operation. So.
I think the trickiness, Annie, is to find people such as yourself who will do this. That's
Yeah.
the trickiness of it. And that's just
Wow.
bottom line.
Yeah.
Line.
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, it's just, that's an amazing project. I just never, did you have to raise your rates because the car rentals are raising their rates? I mean, everything is going up. You have to raise your rates, don't you, from time to time?
We do from time to time, but we did not increase them in light of the kind of international car crisis. We want to keep our service affordable, and our goal is to cover our costs, but we do have to incrementally adjust our rates. It's been a couple of years. We were sensitive during the pandemic. So many
Gasoline
people.
Gasoline is $3.70 a gallon, so, you know, and climate, so you got to do something. I mean, it's wow. Yeah.
Yeah, we do adjust our mileage rate periodically to recover more of that cost. And you know, right now we may hang on to some of our vehicles a little longer because they're still safe, reliable, in decent shape, but also it's buying a new vehicle is expensive, and they're difficult to come by.
Huh. Well, good. Thank you for the overview this morning. I appreciate that. Anybody else in the committee have some questions? I know I asked a lot of them, but it was only because I'm interested to see how it works. Anybody else? Senator Chittenden, I don't see you. Senator, anybody else?
No, thank you. Great presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Have a nice weekend.
You as well.
Okay, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Thanks for showing
care.
up. Yep, bye-bye. Okay, Jeannie, I think we're